Yeah. Hello. Welcome, if anyone can hear me. And even if you can't. I'm just going to get a little bit organized here while people arrive. Hello. Just getting organized while people arrive. Make a little space. Actually, I could probably just use this one mat. Welcome to everybody who's here. Hi, Ruth from Ottawa, where it's snowing. It's a funny thing, you know, we've had, I don't know how many little snow squalls where it just gray and blowing and really snowy. And then it goes, and then it comes back, and then it goes. So it's just, it's 2020, right? Like this year, it's messed up. Okay, I'm just getting myself kind of organized so I can do some work or some play. And how are you? How's everybody doing?
I'm doing great, Kim. I'm just looking forward to partying with everybody. Back here.
Yeah, I guess that's a good idea, and we'll tilt it down a little bit so that.
Let's get it back first. Ooh.
That's really back. Wow. Hey, wow! Look at that.
Good.
That's not too bad.
Is this in the way at all?
It is not in the way.
Okay.
The top of my head is cut off, but
okay,
I can. There, that's plenty.
Yeah, no, it was the too
there,
far.
That's good.
There.
Oh, good. Glad to hear it, Val. Yes, Ruth and I. Ruth, yeah, was in my acrylics class. She was the one in the back corner that I mentioned earlier.
The troublemaker.
She was good. Philippa, you made it. Yay. It's hard to remember what day's Saturday when all the days are so similar, right? And what's Ruth saying there?
I'm sitting in my home art studio surrounded by magazine cuttings from being inspired by Cal.
Oh,
I haven't
excellent.
created anything yet. LOL. Hey, there's a first steps first, right?
Yeah. We got time. You've come here, so you got time to play with your cuttings.
Yeah. And she said, oh, yes, I was a model student.
Oh, absolutely you were. You did all kinds of lovely things. So, you know, that was kind of the, right? Interesting, lovely things. Aha, here's what I was looking for. So, some of you know I'm starting my Altered Books course this Friday to come. And so I thought what I would do is pick out a small book to alter differently, just with a starting off in a different place. And because I'm going to be working more pages in a session, whereas on the encyclopedia, I love it and it's fascinating. It leads me down pathways that are more intricate, and each spread takes much more time. But I thought it would be fun to do something faster, fresher, bolder. I have germs of ideas in here, and you know, how it actually ends up in the end, I don't know. But getting that bolder, fresher start, I think will be really fun. So I see we've got more people who've joined in, so that's great. If you feel so inclined, anybody else is watching, please say hi in the chat if you're able to. And if you don't mind sharing where you're coming in from, that would be lovely to know. And of course, if you brought any art supplies with you that you're going to play with, you can share that too.
Sparkle Girl, is that Kay?
That's Kay, yeah.
So Kay has joined us. She says hi.
Yay, Kay.
And Mira has joined us, said hi, teachers.
Hi, Mira. Yeah, and please feel free to just relax and chill out and watch.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't have to. One of the things that I really don't like seeing is this kind of, and you see it in certain places on social media and so on, activity shaming. So, oh, you should write a book, you should learn a language, you should lose 30 pounds, you should, or get, become super fit because you got all this time. You should do this, you should do that. And, should is one of those red flag words.
Yes.
I prefer you could. If you feel capable and inspired, can we have one now?
I was just going to read that.
Well, it is 2:00, so early start, but you're old enough to decide if that's going to work for you today, and I'm totally cool with it. I won't do it myself because I need my head about me, but cheers. Cheers with my water bottle. So Cal, bless him, has all these collage supplies, big bins of things, and including some books that people have donated. So I found this little book. One of the things I like about it is it's bound, it's a hardcover. So that's one of the things I like. It's also been bound in a way where the page lengths are uneven.
What are those called, Kim?
I forget.
Signatures.
Oh. See, it's constructed in signatures, but the page lengths are actually uneven, and the page edges are deckled.
Yeah.
So, which means that they're not cut perfectly straight. So I like that. There's something really nice and tactile about it, and
it feels nice too.
It does, and so that's why I thought I would work with this book. Plus, I like the size. This is a nice,
so kind of a pocket size almost, right?
Compared to my encyclopedia, that's a fair bit smaller, right? So I thought that would be nice to work with.
Yeah, it looks like it's like 7 by 6 or
something like that.
So Philippa says, yesterday I was painting on a collage canvas for 3 hours, and this morning I did a yoga session. So right now I'm just going to veg while you do the work.
It sounds like you've done plenty.
Yeah.
Also, what a lovely thing that you did a big yoga session. Wow. I did a very short one. I can only, the longest one, you're going to be amazed. Longest one mentally that I can manage is 10 minutes. And I more often do a shorter one. So, but I benefit from it, even though it's short. It makes a difference in my mobility and circulation and how good I'm feeling. So I'm grateful for the short ones, because otherwise I wouldn't be doing them at all. Yeah. So I also like, it has some classic typography in it, and my background is as a graphic designer with a special interest in typographic design. So I have forgotten so many typefaces I had memorized, because I would work really long days and then go home at night and flip through type catalogs to relax. I was a total type geek, right, Cal?
You were.
So I had all this stuff crammed into my head, and well, let's just say a combination of circumstances mean that a tiny fraction of it is still remains up there. But look, this book even has a ribbon in it. That's nice.
That's really great.
Nice sort of satiny ribbon.
Is it a children's book, Kim, or is it a...
It's called Dear Canada. I guess that's a series, and the story is Orphan at My Door, The Home Child Diary of Victoria Cope, Guelph, Ontario, 1897. It's probably a fascinating story, but I already have stacks of books at home. And I mean stacks of books.
Is it illustrated?
I think it might have a very small number of illustrations. Let me see. So I just wanted to flip through, actually, so you could see what it's mostly text, but it's using a font called Gaudi, which is a classic book font. I think you see it less often. There's some photographs from her life in the back, but mostly it's text. But it has, you know, classic printers ornaments in there and so on. So I quite I like interacting with something that has that. Here's some of the other typography. You know, it's not brilliant typography, but it's restrained and
it's had some thought put in.
Yeah, it's got some thought and some skill in it. So yeah, I'm kind of excited about working with this. So
sorry, I'm a bit delayed. The sort of month font that said September is a nice script.
Yes, I think it's Park Avenue.
Yeah.
Anyway, but I can't be 100% sure because, as I say, leaky brain now. Okay, so I'm going to get the encyclopedia out of the way, so I don't get confused. Welcome to all the new people who've arrived. So glad you could join us. There's also this really old book here, a slim volume, but it's meant for children, so it has fantastic big type in it, and I think I'm going to want to cut some things out from this. So collage is going to be involved today, among other things. There are even little illustrations too, but I think...
Wow, that was in there? That's
yeah,
great.
yeah, so excited. What's weird is the spine has been designed so the type goes up instead of down.
That's a European.
That's a European thing, as far as I know. So let's see where it's published.
Ruth has a question.
London and Glasgow,
okay.
Blackie and Son. So that's why.
That makes sense.
Yeah. From what year?
Gunther has joined us. Hi, Gunther.
Hi, Gunther.
And starting to work on one of her homework.
Oh, well, that's good.
Yeah. Ruth says, I have a question which might be dumb. No such thing, Ruth.
Don't worry about it, Ruth.
One does one do when one has what does one do when has altered when one has finished an altered book? How do you display?
Ah, yes. So you know, if I have an altered book in a show, I will have it up on a plinth usually, and you can handle it a couple of ways. If it's very fragile, then probably what you'll do is photograph spreads and have prints of the spreads in the exhibition space.
And what is a spread?
Oh yeah, thank you, Cal. So this is a spread. This is a page. Spread, it consists of typically 2 pages because this is how we typically bind books, right? And spreads are designed, you know, they're seen together, so they are designed with that in mind. Now, this is a very simple book design, so it's not like they've done anything tricky to design it as a spread. But you know what they did do is they designed what's called the grid. So the margins, the spaces of margin, it's wider out here than it is from here to here. And that's because these need to look a little bit related to each other. So yeah, so there's a whole art to that that's, you know, in a book like this is very subtle. Whereas in a magazine spread, it's much more, or a coffee table book, it's much more elaborately considered and designed.
Sandy Wong has joined us.
Hi, Sandy.
Hi, Cal and Kim. I collaged a Mother's Day card for my mom-in-law this week and have piles of magazines to clip from. Really, too many mags. To which Cal replied, too many mags. I don't understand what this means. It doesn't
compute.
And Mia has joined us and says hi.
Hi, Mia. Oh, refreshing. Wow, it's blowing out there. Okay. So one of the things I need to consider is, you know, those pages are densely packed when it's closed and very flat. And I'm going to be adding things in. I'm going to be collaging. I'm going to be, you know, painting things in. So it's going to increase the thickness of each page. And that will gradually cause the book to do this, 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 and this, because all these pages will need more space and they'll fan out. So I'm thinking about, I'm going to look at the binding and consider how I might remove some sections, some signatures, some pages to create space.
You could take the sort of center spread out of each signature. Might be a good way of going.
That might be a good way of going about it. So I have to take my glasses off because, of course, I can't see anything.
So Mia has a question.
Yeah.
Can I use a glue stick and then cover the entire page with acrylic gloss medium?
Yes. You may. Ideally, you know, if there's any squeeze out from the glue stick after you've burnished it onto the page, wipe away the excess, but just
compatible.
Just to have it nice and clean. Yeah, well, the thing is, even if there are small gaps as a result of residue, if it's mostly embedded in the acrylic medium that you put in it, that's going to hold very nicely. This is actually perfect bound. Well, it has signatures, but
they're also sort of
glued together, which makes it as opposed to sewn together. So it makes it much more difficult to do that. So I think I'm just going to take chunks and then slice out chunks. So where did I put my Olfa knife? Well, that's my fake Olfa knife. How about that? I'll give myself a nice sharp blade. Always when you're about to start a procedure that involves cutting, make sure you, with a knife, make sure you have a nice sharp blade or you'll regret it. You won't get a nice cut. I'm just making sure my snapped off blade is safely encased in some tape. So even if it does fall, it won't be a hazard. Now, I'm not going to eliminate any pages that have sort of any special typography. Like I won't eliminate that one. But what I might do is eliminate these. And the lovely thing is these become potential collage material.
Joanne Darrow has joined us. Hi, Joanne.
Hi, Joanne. Oh, I forgot to put the blade snapper back in. Safety, safety. Man.
Sandy has a question. Collage. I prefer rubber cement, but I ran out. Can one use an acrylic medium without too much buckling?
You want to have your cake and eat it. It depends on paper, how much buckling you'll get. Now, you're working with magazines, so the heavy paper, you work quickly. The key is to get it burnished down quickly after applying the medium. Thinner magazine paper, buckling is going to happen. It's also about thinness of application. So, for example, if you had a sheet laid out that allows you to sort of overspread, one of the ways in which you can get a nice application is with a foam roller, one that has nice dense pores, not a coarse foam roller. they're designed for distributing paint, and so they distribute a nice efficient coating and very evenly. And so all of those things, a thinner application, even application, and a shorter amount of time reduce buckling. And of course, heavier weight paper reduces buckling. So cut out some more pages here. I don't know, this doesn't feel like a very high quality blade. What happened to my
There are a whole bunch of Wolf knives in here.
The actual Olfa knife. Okay. Let's see how sharp it is.
Sandy also
That's
asks, what
better.
about tiny pieces? Should I use a very liquid medium, like the pourable, or liquid glazing medium?
Okay, so pourable only used for pouring. Just it has special properties for that. I would recommend using it as a glue. You could use it as a sealer, that kind of thing. Glazing medium, it depends on what brand it is. So for example, if it's golden glazing medium, that will take much longer to dry than normal medium. If it's Liquitex glazing medium, it will take less time to dry than normal medium. So, and TriArt, they informed me, because I asked, takes the same amount of time to dry as their normal medium. So take your pick. If you have another brand, those are the three I know about, but I can't speak for the other ones. So potentially, yes. Mostly you want to use something plain that's called acrylic polymer medium gloss, semi-gloss, or matte. GAC 100 is another option. If you're using golden, golden has gloss, polymer medium, etc. There, proper quality blade makes all the difference in the world.
It's a cut above.
It is. It is, dear.
Oh, sorry, I saw it. Mia had a comment earlier that I missed. Sorry, Mia. I love how beautifully some older books are bound. Lost artistry. I hope not. I used to send unbound PhD students.
Unbound PhD students there.
These for binding to a company in.
Oh, their thesis.
In Kitchener, Ontario. They did a fantastic job.
Yeah. I remember when I used to work at the Varsity newspaper at U of T. It's the campus newspaper, so it came out 3 times a week. Had a circulation of, I don't know, like 100,000 or 80,000, so it was a substantial newspaper run by students, except for the advertising department, and I became advertising manager at one point. And every year they 3 times a week, that's a lot of papers, but every year we get bound copies made for the archives. And I wasn't in charge of that, but I remember it was a really lovely thing, really properly bound too. It's probably much like your experience. We know a bookbinder in Toronto named Don, what's his last name? Alland? Don
Alland was the U of T.
Oh, right.
Guy.
Don. Oh
Russell.
My God, I can't believe I don't remember his last name.
He taught at Halliburton, right?
Yeah, he taught at Halliburton, and he teaches. I've even taken a workshop from him at Japanese Paper Place. He teaches workshops, and may he teach many more there, because he's a font of knowledge, and he makes really beautiful, exquisite, sometimes very elaborate, sometimes based on very specific time periods or whatever. books and boxes. And, so advertising agencies and design firms will hire him to do very, very special one-offs and presumably very small editions.
Don Taylor.
That's it. Don Taylor.
Yeah. I'll post his website.
That's great. Comments. Yeah.
But I have a few things to pass along to you.
Okay.
So Sandy says, thanks to both of you. I have Liquitex, try it, and I'll try glue sticks because I also mentioned glue sticks.
Yeah.
And Ruth says, I'm really curious if you guys met somewhere related to art. Where did we meet, Kim?
So right now we're both artists and art instructors. And before this, we were both graphic designers and art directors. And we met at a magazine publishing firm. They also had an interest in a book publishing firm. So it was called Key Publishers. And they had an interest in Key Porter Books, which you may have heard of. And they published Toronto Life, this Canadian Business, Your Money, Owl and Chickadee. They don't have those anymore. Quill and Choir, whole Wear magazine chain, which was all over the world, basically.
Yeah, magazines for
travel.
For travelers.
Yeah. So you go to a hotel and you pick up a Wear magazine. It would give you all the, like, where to shop, what to see, have maps, all that kind of stuff, how to deal with transportation and so on. And that's some other good magazines, didn't they? Oh, Toronto Life Fashion.
Yeah. And a lot of like niche things like magazines, right?
Yeah, like Ontario Innkeeper. I think that was the first magazine I was an assistant art director on. But I ran the central art department. So I was hired as a senior designer after working in my own design business for a few years. A design business I started when I was 21 years old. So while my friends were at university, many of whom were getting, went on to get medical degrees or PhDs or whatever, I was toiling away, starting my own business, working from home at a time when if you told people you ran your business from home, they looked at you and it wouldn't compute. They're trying to picture you at home with your cat watching soap operas wearing your pajamas, which, let's face it, a lot of people are doing right now. But they honestly couldn't understand it because it's back in the, like 1984, right? And eventually I got an outside office studio and I got some help. And but Key Publishers lured me away because I really wanted to work in magazines. And so I was, for 6 months, I got to really enjoy not running everything, being able to arrive at 9 and leave at 5 or 6, felt so, I got cable television because I could actually watch television. And 6 months in, my manager says, I'm leaving. Do you want my job? And I made the mistake of saying yes. So anyway, while I was manager, Cal was hired by the VP Creative, who was one of my bosses. And brilliant young talent straight out of Ontario College of Art. But he hadn't been taught the practicalities of production. And so he came to me a lot for help with that. And he also needed the services of my art department. So, because I had like about 12 people working for me, most of them full time. So, so that's how we met.
Sandy Wong says, I loved all the Wear magazines. I might still have some.
That's amazing.
And Bruce said, and drinking your wine, I think in response to being in your pajamas and all.
Yeah, drinking your wine. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, God. I mean, if I saw some of those wear magazines now from the era when I was there, I'd probably recognize some of the ads. I would have laid out some of the pages, although mostly my staff did that. Crazy. Yeah, interesting times. The offices were in a great place. They were in an old factory building down by Front and Church Streets. And it was a big warren of, renovated in a most ad hoc kind of way. So the transitions between areas would be really weird. And when you first worked there, you had no idea how to get to anywhere or find anybody. So, but once you did know, that was really neat. Okay, so I've cut out some sections, which you can see here. And I'm going to, I need to kind of figure out how best to arrange myself.
Sandy asks, what years would those have been? All before internet.
Oh God, yes, way before. So,
but we met in 1990, I think.
No, that's when we started.
So 89.
Going out.
89.
Well, you dated Harriet first.
Right.
So not late 89.
Okay, well, right. But we met, right?
Yeah.
When you were, so around then.
Yeah. I started at Key Publishers in, I'm thinking 87. Yeah, I think it was 87. I got my first Mac in 86, and I think it was the following year that I was hired because of my expertise with computers for design and production, because they had spent a fortune, and I mean a fortune, on a whole suite of Macintosh computers and software and typesetting equipment that worked with the computers, but nobody was using them. And you don't lay out that kind of money and then have nobody use them. They were all using the old typesetting equipment that was still off in the corner. And I don't blame them. It was a high volume department, and if you need to get something out quickly, you use your established skill set. But anyway, I helped get people more trained up, and because I was using it and using the equipment and pumping out massive quantities of work, which was always my style, dear?
Always.
It got people motivated to try it, because they thought, oh, wow, look at what she's managing to do, right? So, yeah, it was an exciting time. All right, no, I don't want this. I want a brush. There we go. Yeah, so I'm going to get some gesso onto some pages. And I'm using a plastic page protector as a protector. It's kind of a page protector in this use as well.
Sandy asks, what did you just pour? Is it for gluing?
It's gesso.
Mia said, must have been hard to leave full-time jobs, to which I have replied that you got seriously burnt out, went home, and within 6 months had too much work to do to handle, so I joined you.
I thought I was going to make, I had started doing hand-painted jewelry, like bowl wooden bracelets and bold beads that I was hand painting, and oh, it was fun. And I still have them, and I think they're beautiful. And I got lots of compliments on them, and I thought, oh, that's something I could do instead, that give me a break from the computer and the deadlines, and maybe I could sell them at fairs or whatever. But when word got out that I was a free agent, I was good at some kinds of design that a lot of designers avoid or aren't good at. And so that meant I was in demand. And it was only months later that I said to Cal, you need to come home because I have so much work on my plate. I literally can't meet the deadlines. And the work was worth more than his salary. So we thought that was a reasonable choice.
I have a few questions I need to pass along. So Mira asked quite a while ago, and I said, I'll ask you. So she asked,
Sorry,
how
Mira.
many, no, it's okay. It's my, how many pages will you take out of the book?
Okay. Well, this is how many I took out. So I took out a number of sections. All right, try and get the lighting there. Now you can see better. So I took out a number of sections of, a few pages.
Looks like 20 or 30 all up, maybe.
More like 30.
Right.
It might or might not be enough, but that's what I'm going with for now. I'm just going to get the fan.
Yeah. I can do that for you in a second.
All right.
Okay.
Got it.
Nancy Monitz has joined us. Hi, Nancy.
Hi, Nancy.
And she says, hi, Kim and Cal. I have a stack of city maps from my travels over the last 15 years that I hesitate to bite the bullet and use. Do you have any sentimental materials that you have yet to use?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And so I won't use them until I know, I have a strong need to use them, like inner need to use them for a thing. But sometimes I'll test the waters by photocopying or scanning some of bits of those materials and work with those, because sometimes you won't arrive at what the project is that will compel you to use them unless you get to practice with them, and copies are a way to practice. Yeah, I don't have enough lifetimes for all the things I want to do, and I know I'm just going to keep coming up with ideas, but that's good, right? So on the one hand, it's a shame, because wouldn't it be awesome if I could do all of them? And maybe if my art practice turns into more of an empire, like Jeff Koons or one of the big name artists with lots of assistants, then I'll get a lot more done.
So, Kim, that brings something to mind that I want to mention. Is I kind of feel like stuff comes into our life.
Yeah.
And you can either hoard it or use it. And I kind of feel like using it as an invitation for more to come into your life. So you use it and you think, oh, I'll never see this again. But something else is interesting.
Yeah, something even better may come along.
So it's kind of like
it's a balance, right?
Yeah.
Because there are things that are special for a variety of reasons. I don't know, like if you had maps from your first trip to Europe and you did a gap year and you wandered around Europe for a few months and so you had these hugely defining experiences and so on, then I wouldn't just rush into cutting them all up and pasting them on things. I would do some of that practice that I mentioned.
All right. Sandy has a question for you.
Okay.
Sandy says, how? Where do you make copies? Color? Staples?
So there are options, right? Yeah, you can go to Staples, any place that has any. If you're anywhere near a university or college, there's often like a copy shop of some kind that you can find where you can do self-serve copying. But Staples is one of those places. There used to be FedEx and Kinko's, but I think there's still UPS stores that they do shipping, they do mailboxes, and they also have copiers. And you can also get multi-function printers that might be inkjet that you can also get multifunction laser printers, but we have inkjets that are multifunction, and so we use them for copies.
And we scan. You can
scan.
either scan it if you want to use it digitally, or you can just make a copy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, what am I doing? I still have gesso in my palette. I'm just hopelessly, and I put it in the wrong palette because this was going to be for my ink and that was going to be for my gesso. It's one of those days.
I'll give this one a quick wash then.
If you don't mind. So Cal's just going to head off and give my other dish a wash, so that, because I completely failed to put the gesso in the correct dish, because the one he's washing had some old gesso in it. So I'm just going to put it in. So the gesso, I love using gesso because it, it gives you a nice surface and everything, but it pushes things back. This is nothing fancy going on here, but I love the fact that there's white, but you also see the text. So I'm looking at the screen right now, and it looks a little more white in real life than this looks in the camera. Camera lenses are so different from human eyes. But it's more like that when I look at it in person. And I love that. I love that we can see what underlies. But now that I've put this white here, it's got some potential for new things to be asserted in front, and the other stuff is really pushed back. So I've got my handy little fan here. It's not as noisy as a blow dryer. Yeah, and it's drying nicely. So I'll get maybe 3 or 4 of these pages gessoed just to be able to get a start. So I can put this page protector down here and flip the page, even though it's not quite dry, still damp. I feel like the surface is sufficiently set up that now I can paint this one. So, this is interesting. So Sandy was asking about buckling earlier. So these pages, they're book paper, so they're quite absorbent, and they are buckling somewhat, but they'll flatten out more once the gesso has dried. But these aren't as thin as some magazine pages. Thank you so much, dear. Bless him. What would I do without you?
Mira saying, I am having ideas for our next book alteration course.
Excellent.
For her.
No, because this isn't noisy.
Right.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. I can still talk. You can still hear me. It's awesome. I'm not subjecting you to some horrible noise. Yeah. I'll do one more gessoed page. And then I've got some India ink. And I've got some acrylic inks. And yeah, I don't know. Got some germs of ideas. We'll see what happens.
All right. Another question from Sandy. Can you put a coating on the other side of the page to counter the buckling?
Yes, that can help. Now, if it's very thin paper, it won't work well. If it's moderate paper, then do it after the other side is dried.
Otherwise, you're sort of sealing in moisture, right?
Yeah, well, and yeah, it just won't work well. It creates a a number of problems if you practical problems otherwise. My preference for collaging, and I will do it in this book at least sometimes, is using medium. And probably what you'll see, you know, I don't always think about it. I have demonstrated it many times, but I think probably I work fairly quickly, and that's part of why it works. And I also seal it in, and that helps smooth it out. So there, that sort of relates to what you were saying. So let's pretend I'm collaging this onto this. I will apply medium to this. I will apply medium to the back of this. I will burnish this on, and then I will brush medium over it while the other things are still wet, and then I'll leave it. So there you go. So that's like full-on acrylic medium technique for collaging, and it's just like decoupage. All right, how many pages have I got here? I have 4. Excellent. And this one is now pretty dry. It's a little bit damp, but it's pretty dry. Like in terms of the surface, I feel like I can do stuff with it. So I think I will get...
Nancy says, got it. Thanks.
Good. Oh, I need my barrier cream before I start getting mucky stuff all over me. And I saw it earlier. Thank you. One that says barrier cream on it. I do that because, you know, I often store it in a cart that has a whole bunch of tubs and bottles of medium and gel and modeling paste and what have you. And I'm only seeing the tops sometimes. So that's why I've labeled the top of that jar, because I won't see the face label. It's a good tip if you have a similar situation. Maybe you have stuff in a drawer, in a box. So I used a paint pen to get that on there. Okay, got some ink in here. Now I might start off, I think this jar has just some ink wash in it. So I'm going to just use this jar as itself. And I'm going to put a barrier just because I don't want it soaking through other pages.
That's yummy right there.
Yeah, isn't it?
Makes me think of Ham's heart on.
Yeah. This is a lovely thing about doing something responsively, improvisationally, is, you know, I could start off with the idea of just painting this whole page black, but then pause and notice how much I'm liking the brush strokes and say, well, you know what I'll do instead is I'll just activate this whole page with brush strokes of the ink. That's that noticing thing. Noticing is key, right? In so many things. Okay, so there. It's that nice feeling. So on one side, I've obliterated. And this one I've sort of obliterated, but I've sort of asserted because the brush marks have all kinds of personality to them and texture. So I'm finding that pleasing. So I'm just going to leave that spread that way for now. And I'm going to flip over and think about what I might like to do here.
Mia says, I'll let you.
That's all right.
I'm making COVID-19 face masks from paper towels.
Oh, wonderful.
Now I have a bunch of 1 to 2 inch strips left over, white and sky blue, hoping to use them in some artsy way, possibly quilt collage. Any ideas, anyone? And Valerie says weaving them might be interesting.
Yeah. I also think about gel plate printing, right? Or jelly plate printing. Impressing them into the, or using them as masks. But paper towel often has a nice texture.
They're too small for masks.
Printing masks. Or painting masks. All right. Yeah, where did I put that? I have this lovely fat brush that I like, fat tapered brush.
Is that one of those Crayola ones?
Yes, it's a very expensive European brand known as Crayola. They're terribly expensive, but they work. They have a nice synthetic. It's not the most refined taper ever. Olive. Okay, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to be Cy Twombly here. I need my...
I'm excited.
Yeah. Yeah, because I have this plastic page protector, I can go right off the page. That's kind of important to not feeling all hemmed in. Are you adjusting? Good. Thank you, dear. And I'll create a little variety in I'll introduce a little bit of awkwardness in how I do the loops. I could do much smoother loops, but it's a bit like a calligraphy exercise, eh, Nancy?
That's what I was just thinking.
Yeah. I used to do some calligraphy. People actually paid me for it, although, the output of the Calligraphers Guild is far superior.
Nancy says, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and calligraphy, book arts, I mean, it's a happy connection, I think, with what's going on. I'm going to add in some additional loops because I feel like there should be additional here. I don't like it when things are too polite and well behaved. Then I know I've held myself back. Good. So this is a little bit wet, so I'm gonna.
Your book has a ribbon. Your ink pot has a ribbon.
My ink pot does? Oh yeah. Yeah. This glass jar is like a little jam jar for homemade preserves. Comes in a set at the dollar store. It's quite nice because it has a decent seal, metal lid with an integral ring of something rubberized, glass jar, and a little ribbon. I actually bought them for making transfer medium mixtures. The transfer medium contains rubbing alcohol. And that's not necessarily compatible with every form of plastic. So glass just seemed a safer choice. Plus, it's a greener choice. Almost dry.
Mia says, yes, they have nice textures back to the masks. Great idea, Valerie, and you're so right, Cal. They already have the art piece inside them. I just have to uncover it.
Yeah. That's neat. Here, I'll hold up my spread so you can see.
Now, Mia asked, was it black ink you were using or acrylic paint?
No, I'm using India ink. India ink is waterproof, and it's a traditional ink that uses pure carbon mixed with a bit of shellac. And it's an old school material. So that's how my spread looks right now. And so we've got, one of the things I love about books is sequence. So that's how the previous one looks. That's how this one looks. What shall I do with the next one? I wonder.
Gwen Tooth has joined us.
Hi, Gwen.
She says she's just going to chill.
Fine.
Not going to work on anything this afternoon. Totally cool, Gwen.
Don't need to do anything. Okay, so I'm going to weight down this just to keep it open so that little bits can keep drying. I'll have the fan. There we go. I have in my binder here my stencils and masks binder.
Yes, you've been an organizing person the last little while, right?
I have been.
Which is a good thing, right?
It's a really good thing.
So is that a stencil or a mask, Kim?
It's a stencil. Which is a form of mask. So I just kind of feel like I want to assert something, Here, that's going to be good. Tape this down just to stabilize it. Just enough to stabilize it. Oops. I want to minimize gaps between my mask and my page.
I asked Mia whether she was making the masks, who she was making them for. She said it's for her husband, self, and some of her neighbors and or anyone else who might need them.
Oh, that's lovely. I keep meaning to make some for us, but my schedule's just been so busy. With our events and my teaching, but also I belong to the Redhead Gallery in Toronto, and there's lots going on with that. And it was just yesterday I was talking to Tina, right, dear?
Yeah.
So I also have a friend and colleague in Alberta who's doing a fantastic project. Really ambitious, meaningful, powerful art project, and made up of many small pieces. And anyway, I paid her a virtual studio visit, and we had a really fantastic conversation about the work and about what's behind it and where she's going with it and the feelings around it and stories and the other people that she's gotten involved in it. And yeah, and then she asked me if I would consider writing the statement for her for this body of work, which is a huge compliment and honor. So I'm thinking about that because I'd only do it if I felt I could do it some justice. And you know, writing's one of those funny things. I certainly do a fair bit of writing, but this is at another level. So, okay. I don't know, I might need to clean that up a little bit. I could have just painted this shape, but there is something different about a shape you outline and then fill in that I think I was trying to move away from. But in the end, because I need to clean up those edges, I'm probably going to end up with that feeling. We'll see. See what I'm able to do without.
Mia says, love your template.
Thank you. Yeah, I made it for, I guess, my last Jelly Jam class, which was the first first class of the second session of Jelly Jam. And we were dealing with shape, the power of shape.
Mira says, the neatness of graphic designers.
Yeah. I do have it in me. I am astonished sometimes, though, at myself when I realize that I've had an opportunity to align things properly and done one thing crooked for no intentional reason, and I shake my head because that would never have happened when I was a designer and for years after, but it happens now.
It means the recovery process is proceeding.
Yeah, I guess so. There, that's a little better. Except that I'm not quite happy with how that curve transition now. So this is the trap, right?
Right.
You touch it up, and then that leads to something else needing touching up.
Yeah. The mistakes that come from trying to correct mistakes, right?
Well, hopefully.
Mistakes in quotes too, right?
Yeah, exactly. So
Mia says, love that shape and color. Perfect red on my screen.
Oh, good. And what's amazing is I can still see type through it. I can actually read it. It's really pushed back, but I can still make out the letters. So I kind of like that, you know. So there it is, and you can see the lines of text through it. But I think that's a delicious shape. And I really had a desire to do bold things. I like doing exquisite things too, but I'm a person of, I have to balance myself out.
Exquisitely bold. I mean, that's a great spread right there. It doesn't need any more.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, right? So these books can take forever, or they can actually be relatively quick.
And will you give some thought to pacing where one spread will have like real graphic punch like this one, and then the next one will be understated? Or
I will give some, there will be some feeling to the pacing, but it's going to be responsive.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, no, that's good. Exactly.
Not going to be planned. Unlike my life as a graphic designer, it's not going to be all planned out. So I got a nice blotch of black here somehow.
Yeah.
But that's part of it too, right?
It's a handmade thing, right?
It is a handmade thing.
Mia says, as far as the red goes, right, delicious, so simple but perfect.
Yeah.
Annie Bentley, hi Annie, how are you?
Hi, Annie.
Says pocket full of knowledge. And
I like
Kay
that.
says it looks like a delicious glass of wine.
I love it. And you know what occurred to me was a tongue, like a dog's tongue.
Yeah.
That's great. Notice that it coordinates very nicely with my outfit today. But honestly, there's nothing more classic than black, white, and red, right? And I think I was longing for that too. That really, now I do have some blue, somewhat green blue, but I needed to get that red in there. I didn't think I was going to put the red in this early. So that's the first spread that I've prepared. But what the hell? Life's short. Put the red in.
That's how we know it's your piece, right?
This is what I do instead of partying. Yeah. Put my party on the page.
And just put page parties.
Page parties.
Yeah. There's your new hashtag.
There we go. Yeah.
New hashtag. Page
New
parties.
hashtag. Yeah. There's one you can follow on social media.
Ruth says matches the red lipstick. Exactly.
Mm-hmm. I always have to make sure I have it on. It's like, sometimes, very occasionally, I show up at a class. I've been in too much of a hurry and I haven't even thought about it. And people will really notice I don't have my lipstick on. They hardly recognize me. Okay, so now I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, what do I want to do here? I might get some water-soluble graphite.
Annie says, fun watching repurposing books, both fun and somehow uncomfortable, LOL.
Well, you think of all the times you were told not to mess up that book when you're growing up, right? Don't bend that corner. Don't underline that thing. Don't write in the margins. But in fact, sometimes that's exactly what you need to do, even if you're not doing this. I have to figure, I'm going to use some water-soluble graphite, and I just have to figure out which softness I want. I think I'm going to go with the hardest one. Does this one have it marked? It's a broken one. Ah, okay. No, that's the dark one.
Those water-soluble graphite sticks have two different colors to their labels. One's blue and one's gray.
Yeah.
And sometimes and I don't see any correlation between the color. It's like the blue one should be the water-soluble one.
Yeah.
And the gray one should
have a big drop of water on them so that you know.
But you have to look to find the word water-soluble.
You need your reading glasses to distinguish between the water-soluble ones by Lyra and the non-water-soluble ones.
Ruth says of your lipstick, it's one of your trademarks. And Annie says, yes, it kills me when my sister bends the binding back.
Cracking that spine. Yeah, I know. And, I sympathize because I'm a book lover. We have a lot of books in this house. And some books I have as beautiful objects, and other books I have to be well thumbed. And there was a book I did write notes in because I'm over 50 years old. I'll write notes in them if I feel I need to. This is what I told myself, right? It's a book by Rebecca Solnit. And I'm trying to remember which book it was. Anyway, she's an incredible thinker and incredible writer. She's a historian. PhD in history, I think. But her mind travels so many roads. She's one of the top contemporary thinkers.
Takes one to know one.
Well, by comparison, I'm a small talent and she's a genius.
Different talent. Still genius.
Well, thank you for being such a fan.
And a similarly hungry mind.
Yeah, one of the reasons I love her is because she has a wide-ranging mind, which I share with her. That's for sure. So I'm just thinking, yeah, no, I'm going to kind of scribble fill this.
This is on a Gesso page, right?
It's on a Gesso page, yeah. And then I need another brush.
Pick a brush, any brush.
A little water on it.
Tango says, or Mia says, soulmates equal curious, wide-ranging minds.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, it's a lovely thing about an author or an artist of any kind, right? Musician, visual, writer, actor sometimes, is the recognition. You recognize someone whose mind or spirit is in some way synchronized with your own.
You should tell people about who you've been on a jag about recently.
Should I do it?
Yeah. Well.
Yeah. So I have I go through phases of muses. You know, you've heard about the artist. It's usually the artist and his muse, right? Or fashion designer and his muse, and the muse is always a woman. Even with the gay fashion designers, there's usually a woman who's the muse because they're designing for women. Anyway, I over the years have had a succession of muses. I'm not going to get into all of them, but recently discovered, and I feel like I mentioned this recently on screen. It's the British actor Tom Hiddleston, who does a combination of doing classical Shakespearean acting on the stage. We actually saw him on our first trip to London, England, at the Donmar Warehouse in a Chekhov play called Ivanov. And Kenneth Branagh was in the lead role. Gina McKee, who's an amazing, accomplished British actress, played his wife. And the then unknown Tom Hiddleston, now famous for playing Loki in the Thor movies and all kinds of other things. The Night Manager, he was the Night Manager in The Night Manager on Amazon Prime with Hugh Laurie, and based on a John le Carré book. That's what got me onto him. And then I realized I'd seen him in all kinds of things, but just hadn't, you know, he's not one of those actors who's sort of always playing himself. He's a very varied actor. And it turns out he's incredibly smart and educated. So he got 2 firsts at Cambridge University in classics, so ancient Greek, Latin, so on. And then he went on to study at RADA for acting, one of the great institutions. And anyway, I find him fascinating because he's incredibly articulate and thoughtful about when he's interviewed. And his choice of roles is fascinating to me because he intentionally goes very, very, like I just saw him perform as Hank Williams in, I I can't remember the name of it. It has the word light in it. Anyway, he did all the singing. He did all the playing. He did an amazing performance. The movie itself is not brilliant. It has really good sections, but the writer director sort of didn't quite pull it all together. But it was worth seeing just for his performance as Hank Williams all by itself.
Nancy says, yes, Tom is awesome.
Yeah.
And Mia says, doodle sketched you again. Cannot see your earrings properly today, though.
Oh, yeah? Oh, here. Where are we here? So partly it's their low contrast. They're a Japanese paper. There. See? So yeah. So they're not catching the light the way a metal might. But they tie in, of course. Okay. Now, I've got this roundish shape, and now I want to lay some white on it. Just some white lines or something.
Annie asks out a question. First of all, Mia says, love them. Do they tie in? They do tie in. Made me laugh. And Annie says, out of curiosity, do the two of you share your supplies?
Some of them. We share a bunch of them. Cal doesn't need all of the supplies I have. I think that would be the most honest assessment of it. I am so varied in I don't think, have you ever done a film-based image transfer?
Once or twice,
right.
when I've sat in on your classes,
yeah,
but not really.
But you don't need them, the supplies for that.
No.
So yeah, so there's a whole bunch of stuff that Cal doesn't need, but of course I need everything he has. But we share back and forth. Like
we do share back and forth. I tend to be a little bit protective because I like my things nice and clean, and so I'm in, and you are,
and I'm messy.
Not your main strength, but we are always, if one of us is in a pinch, the other has it, absolutely, because.
Well, I'm thinking like paint pens and watercolor pads and life drawing pads and life drawing tools
but I am easily overwhelmed by having too many materials, and Kim can't conceive of that. She just needs as many as possible.
I just need a bigger space and robust organizing systems. That's all. Yeah. But instead, yeah. So it's awkward because at the moment we are not a joint entity business-wise. So we try to balance out, if I use some of his things, he uses some of my things, and then it sort of balances out. But we're thinking down the road, it would just be way more convenient if we were a joint business entity, and then it would all be collective.
So Annie says, laughing out loud, I asked because with distance schooling, my teenage daughter is using all of my stuff.
Yeah.
And Mira says, if you had kids, your studio would look like a playground. It still does.
Yeah. I am the problem child in this space. Cal's a problem child in other ways. So, right? We trade off.
Yeah, we both have our problems.
Yeah.
And we both cut each other a lot of, as much slack as we can manage.
As we possibly can.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Sandy says, I'm in the Kim camp. Let me know how you organize when you do.
Oh, yeah.
And Bruce says, in my house, what's his is mine and what's mine is mine.
I could picture that, Ruth. Yeah, I think sometimes Cal thinks that's exactly what happens. Okay, so that was a long time spent doing 3 strokes. But, you know, you've got to do this right and get them just the right amount of cockeyed and incorrectly spaced. You have to take great care with that. So that's what I've got there. So there's a kind of conversation. That's really what I'm...
That's great. It's kind of like 3 negatives from the loops, right? Yeah.
So I think it's kind of neat going from this to this. So you feel there's a relationship between this spread and this spread, but a bunch of changes at the same time. And that is a nice dance.
Yeah, you notice the similarities and you also notice the differences. So
yeah.
Mia says, love it. Yes, love the conversations.
Yeah. Just give this a bit of drawing. Looks like a bunch more people have joined us. That's nice. Welcome to everybody.
Yeah.
Who've arrived more recently. Please feel free to say hi in the chat and let us know what you're up to or where you're from. Or okay. That's probably feeling, yeah, it's still pretty damp, but now I've got this. No. It tried to stick together just a little bit, but it's okay. It worked out. Just dry enough. I might put this as a precaution here, since this still feels a little damp. I don't want that white sticking to the black.
Mia says, good idea for drying, better than my cheap hairdryer.
Yeah, I mean, hair dryers work really well because they have heat as well as air.
They're more efficient.
But they can have less air than the fan, just more heat, and that can make it dry more quickly. But it's so noisy, and yeah, I don't know. We have an ancient little hair dryer, and sometimes it just cuts out. So
yeah, as soon as it overheats.
Yeah, it has a safety thing.
Yeah.
It causes it to cut. I mean, I'm glad it has the safety thing. But oh, I have an idea. I might want to take to the next page in order to create a gap of, okay, time for some black ink. Oops, I should have put that in water, eh? Why do that when you can let it get nice and hard?
A crispy brush might give you a more interesting result.
Yeah, not what I'm looking for right now. I want more of a Hans Hartung effect. And that's juicier. Okay, good. Get some of the water out so that it doesn't dilute the ink too much.
So Kim, are there still spaces in your altered books course starts next Friday, right?
Starts this coming Friday.
This coming Friday?
Yeah. Yes, there are. Not many, but there are.
Will you let your husband play along?
Yeah, I just might.
Yay.
Yeah, Cal thought he'd join in.
That sounds like too much fun for an ex-graphic designer not to.
Yeah.
Mia asks, can I dilute the India ink or is it best straight from the bottle?
No, you can definitely dilute it, and then it's just called an ink wash. And you can dilute it as much as you want. So the more water you put in it, the grayer it will be, the lighter the gray will be. You just need to do it, especially once it's diluted a lot, you just want to do that on at least a semi-absorbent surface or a fully absorbent surface. When it's a stronger concentration of ink, it can be somewhat diluted, then it can go on less absorbent surfaces because of the shellac content. So this is going to be a wet and juicy one. Oh, this just feels like so much fun. Doing big black X's, or not even that big, but bold, you know. And intentionally varying them. When I first started in graphic design, that was before computers were involved, and so we used to go to great lengths to make things by hand that appeared that were as mechanically produced as possible, so that they were like what a computer later could do much better.
And then after we were on computers for a while, we would use computers to try to simulate handmade things, right? Because, for instance, something we used to do a lot of was use rubber stamps in our direct marketing.
Create fake ones.
Yeah, so the best thing to do would be to send out a graphic to a rubber stamp making company,
yeah.
And they'd make a stamp for you. But sometimes we didn't have that amount of time, so we try and make it look as much like it had been rubber stamped as possible using computers. So it's hilarious how as soon as there's a dominant technology, there are people trying to do things the opposite.
Well, and right now, you know, the popular look right now for young adult stuff and stuff that looks hip and current and whatever is rough and distressed and hand lettered and all of that, not all of which is genuinely roughed and distressed or genuinely hand lettered. They derive from it, but they've been made into fonts and so on that you can just use on your computer. So now I've got a big area of juicy X's.
Yes, it's vintage, question mark.
Yeah, and vintage looks. Yeah, definitely. I mean, it kind of goes with the beards too, right? So, well, maybe I could have done a better job with that. One of the problems is I think maybe I made my rows a bit too straight. So this is, it's one of the things I fight against. But that's okay. You know, one of the great things about a book is there are way more pages in here. So I can come back to this idea, vary it a little bit. And one of the variations will be they're not going to be so row-based, right? I better get the fan because this is really wet.
And just a heads up, you're approaching 3:30.
Am I really? Oh my God. I'm genuinely shocked that we're already almost at 3:30 because, you know what they say about time flying. I've been having so much fun with you guys. I hope you have too.
Mia says the X's look like flying birds.
Neat.
Oh yeah, I can totally see that, Mia.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fun.
Yeah, a real flock, dense flock of them, like in a murmuration of starlings, right?
Yeah. It's not a flying V, it's a flying X's.
I should cover up this ink.
It's a flock of Canadian geese. Are you okay there? You want me to do
I'm okay. Yep. I just want to not dry my ink, you know. This was definitely, I had an instinct. This is the kind of thing I wanted to do today. It's a good instinct. Just like Nice and bold. This is probably, if I did street art, you know, graffiti artist style, this is probably like what I would do as a street artist.
So Annie says, that was fun. Thanks again. Maybe if I walk Pup in the snow flurries, it'll end it for the season. You'll have to catch the rest of your party on the replay.
Okay.
Have a great rest of the weekend.
Thank you. You too, Annie. Thanks so much for coming. Have a good walk. Chilly out there, I think. Although our trilliums are blooming. Not all of them, but they're coming up, which is very exciting.
Mia says, anticipation, what will go on the next page? And then she says, can you do a flip through before you go?
I will.
Absolutely,
I'll definitely do a flip through. I need to get some of these X's drier before I can even think of doing that. Otherwise, I'll end up with impressions of the X's on the facing page, which is not an idea I would reject out of hand, but I don't actually want it for this.
Yes, right.
Yeah. So
Kay says, thank you so much, Kim. Always fun and knowledgeable.
Thanks, Kay. Thanks so much for coming. Glad you enjoyed it. Hope you have a good rest of your weekend. So how are all the collage artists doing in the group right now? People figuring out what to glue with, people who have too much stuff, too many magazines, too much stuff cut up. Hopefully you've been making some interesting layouts. Oh, I have to use my other arm now. This is getting tiring. It's not a very heavy fan. I'm just weak. I'm working on that.
Mia says, getting inspired but overwhelmed.
Oh, yeah.
Ruth says, I am just frustrated, LOL.
Uh-oh.
Mira says, collaging my life away.
There are worse ways to spend it. Yeah.
Ruth says, I think I totally overdo the collage is my problem.
So, overdo it. And then bring in 1, 2, or 3 big, bold things that edit. You layer them on top, but they kind of edit what you've got down. Sometimes you can actually get to a more interesting result by overdoing it and then editing. Editing by adding, though. So I will often use Gesso to edit, which I imagine is something I will do in this book. Certainly planning to bring some of that into the Jelly Jam course that's going on right now. This is the wonderful thing, that what I do in my studio feeds what I teach in the courses. And that's why sometimes, I have a kind of general scheme of topics I'm going to cover when I start out a course, but then I will have a bright idea that will grow out of my doing something and thinking about it that I'll realize would be a really good fit for a course.
So Ruth says, how do you know when to stop? And then she says, okay, good tip. And she's, oh, Gesso, good idea. I have a bucket of it. Maybe I'll just stand on a ladder and pour it all over this.
Well, if you put Gesso on it, think about creating windows through which you see what you've done in collage,
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's a very powerful way of doing things.
No piece of art is done until you get to the point where it's done, right?
Yeah.
I've heard read so many artists talk about their work and say, oh, you know, it was just going nowhere. It was going nowhere. It was awful. It was awful. And then I painted over this part and I put this thing in, and suddenly it started to come. But you can just tell that that was in the last 3% of their process. You know, they finally got there.
Well, you know, in a couple of studio parties ago, I was working on a spread in the encyclopedia, the science supplement, and it went through a terrible, awkward, I call it the awkward 13-year-old phase, you know, that maybe it's 12, but, you know, somewhere in there, the nose is too big, the feet are too big, and everything's gangly, and all the parts aren't synchronized. So artworks go through that too, but that's normal. Like, it's not like, oh man, I failed because it's in this horrible stage. No, it's just a stage. So have faith. You know, if you realize it's just a stage or a phase of the artwork's development, that will allow you to feel a lot calmer about it, a lot less judgmental about yourself and what you're doing. Okay.
You know, Kim, I think one of the big differences between a more experienced artist and a less experienced artist is simply that artists who have more experience have more faith. They get to that awkward stage and they go, ugh, this is awful, but I recognize it. I've been here so many times before. I'll just keep going in faith, right?
Yeah. And you recognize it. So it's not that you don't go ugh. You do go ugh, and you do sort of cringe a little, but you get over that because you go, oh yeah, been here lots. And it can work out. It can totally work out. It doesn't always work out because nothing always works out, right? But yeah, you can definitely dig yourself. Sometimes, you know, sometimes what I do is I try to dig myself an interesting hole, because it's in getting myself out of that hole that I click with something valuable.
Digging that hole sort of forces you to be more creative to get out again, right?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just going to protect this page because I'm suspicious of a little bit of that ink still.
Is it flip time? Is it flip time?
I'm going to flip. So, you know, I've done nothing to the cover. There are a few pages at the beginning I've left as they are because I want to have time to get to know what this book is going to be before I do anything to them. But this is the first spread. And I loved all the ideas everyone came up with for what that represents. And I'll just bring it closer so you can really see the qualities of it. Right. There we go. And then there's this spread. Bring it in close. Got a couple of black blobs there. But isn't it nice the way the text peeks through these loops? I really like that.
Ruth says it's a soup bowl, and Mia says, imagine someone opening that book expecting text.
Now this spread I have left as is for the time being, but isn't that interesting how the X's are showing through? So that'll be neat coming back to and seeing what I do with that. And then here's this spread with the X's. So that was a good start, I think. You know, that's one of the things that can be good about working a little smaller page size and bolder, simpler. You know, the thinking's still all there, but in terms of the execution, this isn't as painstaking an execution. And still being responsive, but it's not as derived. It's not derived from the content of the book. So that's one of the differences I wanted to have between my two books. So that's where I'm going to leave it today. Are there any final comments I should?
There are, yes. So,
Great.
Ruth says, the wind is howling and I'm going to brave the elements now to get some air. Thanks for the fun time again.
Thanks so much, Ruth.
And Mia says, thanks for the flip through and this session. Loved being with you, everyone. Happy weekend.
Have a good weekend. Thanks so much for being here.
Gwen says, thank you, Kim and Cal. Always a pleasure to be here.
Aw, thanks, Gwen. That's great.
Mira says, thanks for this session.
Thank you, Mira. Hope you enjoyed it.
I know she's been busy.
Yeah. You've probably been head down, just like going at it. I can imagine.
And Val says, thank you.
Aw, thanks, Val. Hope you had a nice time. It's lovely making with all of you. So thank you for that.
And Nancy Minette says, thank you, Kim and Cal. Thank you, Nancy.
Thanks, Nancy.
Take care. Stay safe.
Yeah, lovely to see you here.
Joanne says, nice listening as I worked on my eggs. Oh, yeah. Those.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
The Ukrainian type eggs.
What's the name
I'm
of
sorry,
them?
I forget the name of them. I saw your post that had the name, but yeah.
Philippa says, fascinating smile. Thanks so much once again. Stay well.
Oh, you too, Philippa. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
And so glad you made it live this week.
Yeah.
That's great. Well.
So we'll probably close down the video in just a minute, but
feel free.
I'll leave the comments open for a few minutes if anyone has any last things they want to say.
Yeah, we'll just have it open for another couple or 3 minutes. So take care, stay safe and be well, and have some good creative time. Until next week.